Millennials.
Baby boomers.
Millennials.
Baby boomers.
Millennial.
Baby boomers.
Baby boomers. Millennials.
Baby boomers.
Millennials.
Millennial.
Millennials.
The baby boomers.
Baby boomers.
Millennial.
The millennials.
The millennials who want freebies. They want free college education.
You're completely
they want you to
wrong on this.
I'm
You're
not.
completely
No,
wrong on
millennials.
this.
I'm a millennial.
I'm a millennial.
I'm a millennial.
I'm a millennial, and I'm sorry.
And I'm sorry.
We suck, and we know it.
We're self-centered. We're entitled. We're narcissistic, lazy, and immature.
And we're super sorry about that.
We're the worst. If only we could be more like our parents.
Yeah, the baby boomers. You guys were great.
He gave us great music.
60s counterculture.
Psychedelic drugs.
A lot of great movies, too.
Jurassic Park was awesome. Good job with that one.
We don't know what happened. You raised us to believe that we were special.
So special that we didn't even have to do anything to earn it.
I got this trophy for existing in soccer.
That's pretty special.
No idea what went wrong.
You tried your best. You insisted we all go to college, and now we're the most educated generation in American history.
Sure, college costs 600% more than it did when you went, and yes, we averaged like $30,000 in student loan debt.
But here we go again, making excuses. We're so lazy.
Instead of living in our parents' basements and waiting tables, we should just go and get real jobs, like you did.
I mean, not a job in manufacturing since those all got outsourced in the 90s.
Man, the 90s were great. Do you guys remember Full House? It's a good show.
We graduated into a recession, and 90% of the jobs created since 2009 are part-time. But let's be honest, we just don't like hard work.
Hey, what was the deal with that recession anyway?
I think it had something to do with the housing bubble that started in the 90s. I don't know, I was still pretty young back then.
Oh, and we're really sorry about messing up those 2 wars you guys started. Sorry so many of our friends died.
We just can't do anything right.
We're really sorry we suck so much.
I mean, it's not like we jacked up college tuition prices or
Destroyed the manufacturing industry.
Started 2 quagmire wars.
gutted the unions.
Destroyed the global economy.
And left our offspring with an environmentally devastated planet stripped of its natural resources.
Man, it'd be crazy if there was a generation that recklessly awful, huh?
But we do text too much. Ugh.
I know, right?
So on behalf of all the millennials, we'd like to apologize for being so terrible. From now on, we're gonna be just like the baby boomers.
Because you guys, you nailed it.
Baby boomers, I feel, are a little more. I feel like keeping up with the Joneses is a really good expression for them.
Born after the war, from 1945 until about 1960 something or other. So we are in our 50s, late 40s, 50s, and 60s, early 60s.
They're so worried about what other people have, and they're very consumer minded.
Definitively, it's a generation of people. I am pretty much from the end of World War II. That were born at the end of World War II, so late 40s, I would think, mid to late 40s, and it ended right around the time that I was born, which was 1964.
Hippies, flower children, brought up during the age of John F. Kennedy, so we thought anything was possible, and then he was murdered and killed, and so everything fell apart.
They yell at you for using social media, but they're the first ones to ask you how to post the status.
Drugs, sex, and alcohol would be part of what our generation grew up with, I think.
I think for baby boomers, I think angry. Angry, can I speak to the manager?
Yes.
Slow to appreciate or slow to accept major advances in technology. Sometimes it's a little intimidating, even for myself, like when I see these new gizmos and gadgets, and sometimes I just prefer the old-fashioned way. So I think my generation is probably less apt to try things new technology-wise.
They sometimes don't want to understand the reality of life. They don't understand that things are changing and they cannot move along. And so they think you're nuts. They're not moving along with you.
They are more conservative, and I feel my generation's more progressive in the way we just think about social events, I guess. And, they are. I don't have much thought about them.
Now, most of the boomers are getting ready to perform another act in their life because they're getting ready to retire.
It's hard for us to kind of like say, grasp it all. You know, I think in her generation, or since she's been born, we went from beepers to cell phones to Android phones to iPhones that can do everything now, and you know, like their computers and all, they're all miniature computers and all, and it's just so different than technology-wise. I mean, the biggest invention, because the TV was already there when I was born, but the biggest invention that I think I've talked about before
I
was
know what you're gonna say.
the microwave. Yeah, it was the craziest thing because it just sped up everything, and then that's probably what we're going to talk about later, about how this millennium generation, or millennials, tend to want everything a lot faster and expect everything to be a lot faster.
If you think about it, millennials grew up at a time where they saw the government lead us into a housing boom and bust, lead us into 2 really expensive wars, saw an economy collapse. They saw the government try and so far fail to deliver a really good healthcare system. In contrast, they've seen their heroes, young kids like Mark Zuckerberg and Sergey Brin, who have found ways to solve problems on their own. Why would a millennial say, "Can you take my picture for me?" when they know they can take their own picture better than anyone in the history of time? You know what? That's the millennial attitude, and I'm okay with it.
Millennials, I feel, are described as like the hipster culture, just kind of wishy-washy, disrespectful, fidgety. I would say unsatisfied, not someone who will sit behind a desk and they're not afraid of leaving some place they consider toxic or uncreative or unfulfilling for another more satisfying route.
They function best in environments where they have to do multiple things at once.
Overachievers?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Driven.
Your generation has great opportunities.
Characteristic-wise, I think we're very self-absorbed. I think we want like instant gratifications, like every like on Instagram or every like on Facebook kind of validates who I am as, not me, but like validates who we are as people kind of thing. I think we want things like now, like we're very needy people, and it's like we're at the same time, I think we're very driven people though, because we want these things. We're gonna just strive to like always get what we want, no matter like how we have to get there, we will get there.
I have great hope. I have great hope in like my children or my children's generation, that they are not going to muck it up quite as badly as my generation did. I think my generation started out being very idealistic and very hopeful, and then lost that hope and lost that idealism, and I think a lot of them are trying to get it back now. Very socially consciously aware, so a lot of social consciousness, like being active, being very political. But when you look at things now, your generation is different in that you are one-shot deals and causes, and then it stops, and there's not a continuation of causes or ideals.
I think we're like babies too, in a sense. Like we don't grow out of this like mentality of like, I need love, like someone needs to love me. You know, I need attention. Like we always crave this kind of instant attention. It's very, everything's like always instantaneous, I feel, nowadays.
They're losing humanity, education, because they're not using their mind. They're just using computers.
You grew up with technology. So, the phone is attached to your hip, right? And so it has gotten that way for me too, but not the same way. Like I remember when I didn't have a cell phone. You guys are more tolerant of different opinions. I think you guys are more accepting of people in general. Like different lifestyles, different backgrounds, different everything. I think you're more embracing of people. I think maybe a lot of people from your generation are superficial about why they do or do not like people, but I think in general, more accepting of people in general.
taken seriously, I don't
As
think.
people.
Because people think that we spend all day on Facebook and Twitter talking about celebrities, which, you know, may take up 15% of our day, or maybe not.
I mean, I have friends who definitely kind of niche people into based on how old they are. For my generation, there's a lot of, you know, everybody's a little different, right? Some of them love technology, some of them hate it. Some of them are Democrats, some of them are Republicans, some of them are very accepting of people, some of them are not. They like to put people in little pigeonholes.
Everything is computerized, where at the point that very little is done mentally. That's how I see it. Technology is good. Don't get me wrong. But at the same time, it's a trend that people overuse it. And they're not using their mind more.
I feel like the older generation kind of looks down on us as lazy's a big one. Like they'll look down at us and they'll say, oh, they don't want to work for it. Meanwhile, that's all we do is work. And we're much more likely to work for free. So I feel like that's a direct way it affects us, is where the older generation looks down and they say, oh, well, they don't want to work through the ranks.
I do want things instantaneously, and so I do sometimes rely on other people to validate how I view myself, and that's not a good thing, but it's just something that a lot of kids in my generation tend to do, so it almost seems normalized, so I don't feel like it's a bad thing if we're all kind of doing it, if we're all in this self-absorbed generation, so to speak.
I mean, in my direct life, my parents would, well, your generation doesn't get the value of $1. And I kind of go back with them and I'm like, well, your generation's the reason my generation is in debt. Forever. Like, forever and ever.
They say we don't care. That we're the selfie generation. That we're lazy, apathetic. They say we're just too attached to our technology.
We can't clean this up together.
They say we're consumed by our shallow social lives. They say we place no value on human connection. We're always taking pictures of our food. We can't put down our phones. So easily distracted by the next great thing.
Motivation, you know, to go out there and achieve something, to go out.
They say we think the world revolves around us.
1, 2, 3.
And we're disconnected from our loved ones.
Love you, Kim.
They say we're never content. We certainly don't agree with everything they say. But we understand why they say these things. It's because they care. We know this. Because we care too.
I think mobile technology really is the biggest gift to humankind.
Absolutely. It's brought millions out of poverty, actually. 2/3 of Africa own cell phones now, and they use it to take out loans and do banking and receive health services and updates, and it's just done so many things for people all over the world.
It's given us a way to communicate like never before.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone around the globe is instantly accessible. And that is something that is so just mind-boggling, that anyone within the borders of our planet is accessible, and it has really created a global network of people. And as a generation, I feel we benefit from that every day.
I think there's nothing wrong with being dependent on mobile technology. When I was a kid growing up, We of course had a phone in our house, but I used to summer in upstate New York at my grandmother's, and she didn't have a phone in her house. And that was like, to me, it was like, oh my God, that's like awful, right? But you know, you survive and you find out that like it's a small town, so you could walk to everybody's house and knock on the door and say, I have a question, instead of calling them up on the phone. And the same thing with the cell phone. I think mobile technology keeps us more connected. I'm not quite sure if that's always good or not, but we are clearly more connected with more people than I think we ever have been before. I have reconnected with, and I know that friends of my generation think that they have reconnected with an awful lot of people that they lost touch with.
But it also causes a lot of problems right now, because so people are too attached to that. You have car accidents, people texting while they're driving. That's very dangerous because you're distracted.
In this day and age, where even if you're not driving, but you're so, you're so concentrated on your phone, you're crossing the street, you're in New York City, you're in a subway station, you're just looking at your phone, someone can come up behind you and rob you or push you, whatever. There's a lot of things that, I guess from that perspective, it could be curtailed a bit. Yeah, we are too concentrated on it.
Okay.
You're born with it, so you probably...
I'm so
you probably don't know any exactly. She's different because, almost you had a phone when you were probably what, 5th grade, 4th grade, something like that, 12, 13, whatever.
Yeah.
And
when it started to matter, like when I started having friends and they all got phones too, like.
Yeah, but even now, young kids are even younger and younger and getting phones.
Oh my God, yeah.
You're holding your life in pretty much the size of a 3-inch by 6-inch piece of metal and plastic and stuff like that, and it's kind of crazy that we have turned into that. So she doesn't know any life before that, but as a baby boomer, I do remember having to make a phone call on the payphone, putting coins in, looking for a payphone, letter writing. I mean, people writing a letter actually to a business or to someone and waiting for them to get the letter, so and then they have to respond back to you to get a letter. Now everything is, again, done in minutes. Really, you can get an answer. It's really crazy how far we've come in such a short period of time.
I mean, I love the mobility of it all, but it is crazy how much like this is practically my life, and when it's not with I know where my phone is 24/7, and as soon as it's not with me, I feel this sense of craving, oh my God, I'm missing out on something. I must be missing out on something. And even though I know 90% of the time I'm probably not, it's probably a mail notification. Even something as simple as just getting a piece of mail is important to me. And it might just be junk mail, but it's still I'm connected to the world. And as soon as I'm away from my phone, it's just oh my gosh, I'm someone out there is gonna invite me to a party. Probably not, but it's still this weird detachment and of disconnect, and it's just hard. And memorizing things too, because his days, you had to memorize phone numbers, right? For a payphone,
yeah, sure.
Memorizing numbers. I remember I had to I only know my house number, my mom and dad's phone number. If I had to call anyone else, I wouldn't know how to, and I'm sure they wouldn't know how to contact me either. It's just, I don't, you don't even think about these things.
Anyone who's in public life, anyone who gives opinions on the internet, they've got to be ready for criticism. I mean, I get nasty comments every day. People say they hate my beady eyes, they say they hate my hair. I got to live with it. It's tough. When you're going to limit the First Amendment to the Constitution, you better have a good reason. And shouting fire in a full theater, that's a good reason. National security or threatening to kill a high public official, that's a good reason. But just because I might have my feelings hurt, not a good reason.
Everyone benefits from the, how do you pronounce it, anonymous nature of the internet. I think everyone at once in your life you've played to the fact that you're anonymous online. I certainly have.
I think we crave human contact. But there probably are people who would prefer to be an avatar than to be the real thing. But I think we're tribal. Marshall McLuhan called us tribal. He talked about how we are basically tribal, and we're all trying to find our tribe. And now our tribe is defined differently because the boundaries of space are being redefined by the boundaries of the internet. if there are any boundaries at all.
At one point or another, everyone benefits. I know now, as an artist, you can release things anonymously, see the reaction, and if it doesn't pan out the way you want it to, nobody knows it's you.
Cyberbullying is such a big thing nowadays. Like before, when you had beef with someone, when you had heat, you would take it out on the playground. You'd just be like, meet me here at 3 o'clock after school. We're gonna fight this out. But now it's so much nastier because, like I said, there's this power that comes behind a computer screen for some reason.
There's a lot of people that think we're all going to go to hell in a hand barrel because of technology. You can misuse anything, right? I mean, anything can be overused, underused, misused. Technology is just another thing. People misuse cars.
Because you can't say some of the vile things that you say face to face without getting hit. So some people are, more comfortable with the anonymous nature of the internet. Some people are more comfortable behind a computer because they can manipulate what is going out about them. Unless you're a celebrity where things are being printed about you nonstop. As a college student, relatively unknown, via an Instagram page, you can manipulate what information. So you can make it look like you're going out every night. And with all of these different people and seeing things and...
Did you used to go up to people, like a girl, and be like, hey, I think you're cute. Like, can I get your number? Like, that just, I don't know, like, but like now it's so easy to say things behind a screen. It's so much easier to take rejection if you're like, just doing it on a keyboard, because for some reason it just hurts less. And when everyone is like at your fingertips and when everyone's like so disposable almost, you lose the value of people. And that's why like going up to someone and being like, hey, like, I think you're really pretty, like, we should go out sometime. Like, that's practically the equivalent of swiping right on someone. And yet I would think it's weird too if someone just came up to me to say that. You know what I mean? And it changes the way that like we interact with people romantically, for sure. And I don't like it because it's so hard. Because everything's so instantaneous and because people are so almost disposable, and it's just you don't value people. You don't want to put effort in like making plans to see them, and it's so easy to cancel on plans. Like back in the day, I'm sure if you made plans without like cell phones, you either go through with it or you got stood up.
Probably, yeah.
Versus me,
it's a lot harder,
yeah.
Right? Yeah.
You
a lot harder to say no, a lot harder to break
to reschedule
plans.
and just but now with me, it's like, oh, I can't make it. Can we cancel for another time? And it's like, I guess we can. I mean.
But it's also on the party, the other party. It's sort of like, yeah, I guess I can because it's so easy to rearrange that party schedule now because everything seems to be like everything. There's not much. There's less effort, because technology has given us that.
People can be more comfortable with that. I feel like a problem with our generation that we didn't touch on is sometimes we're so worried about the surface looking as good as it can. It's because we're afraid of people digging any deeper.
Yes.
We don't know how to confront our own feelings.
And it creates a disconnect between how people perceive us online
and how they perceive us in person.
Yes, absolutely. I think that people that invest a lot of time in their social media, it's not based on their art or their content, but just how people perceive them. So posting pictures of what they're doing all the time.
And the biggest example of that, as love them or hate them, is the Kardashians. They have made a career out of how people perceive them. You have to ask yourself to a point, are they people anymore? Or are they caricatures? Or are they what they've created?
I have selfies, right? I've met people in the airport or wherever, and I've taken a selfie of myself and that famous person, right? So I get that part of it. I don't get Kim Kardashian. How obsessed can you be with yourself?
Why is it I don't get why it's such a concern. If someone takes 300 selfies per day, yeah, sure, it's not etiquette for Instagram users, but they should be allowed to. It's their page.
And maybe they're not taking pictures of their meals. Maybe they're sitting on their butts, drinking beer and watching TBS for 2 hours every night before bed. They have their outlets and we have ours. So
yeah, so like do your thing. It should be no concern what people are doing as long as that person is a member of society and they're not hurting anyone, they're not, breaking laws. All means to them, power to you. Take 1,000 selfies, I don't care. Your butt looks great, do it.
You shouldn't be taking those pictures, those selfies. No. Yeah, I don't agree with it. It's very dangerous.
Frida Kahlo was painting pictures of herself in her day, so...
I was just looking at someone who I am friends with online. she takes a lot of selfies, and I was thinking, you have a confidence level in you that is really extraordinary, and I'm almost in awe of that. I think for some people it really does boost their confidence because it's just funny. I'm looking at a girl whose Facebook page is filled with selfies, and I'm thinking, I never would have thought that would be what I'd be looking at on her. And they're good. I mean, it's fine. It's all about what she's doing in her job and blah, 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 and how she looks going out the door, and, it's a green hair day. Okay, then. That's good. All right.
I think as a generation, we have access to viewing ourselves 24/7. Meanwhile, the previous generation, if you wanted to view yourself, you'd have to take around a mirror everywhere you went. We're in a generation where we're constantly showing people what we look like. And I think it has a tendency to kind of skew how you feel about yourself. Also, on a really, really technical standpoint, the cameras in our phones are not the same quality that our eyes see, so focal length is different. So you look great in the mirror, but when you take a selfie, and this happens to me all the time, when you take a selfie, you're like, oh damn, I look great in the mirror, and you take a selfie, and you're like what? Who's lying here?
Or
someone's lying. It's either I think I look really good, or the camera just thinks I'm ugly.
Or it could be the opposite, and you could use the camera
to manipulate
your appearance, and that is something that I know a few people that have an issue with.
That's a drawback of our generation, definitely, is because we're constantly putting out images of ourselves that
are not accurate.
That are not accurate.
I do it too.
On the flip side, the baby boomer generation, they were very much, what goes on behind closed doors. So someone could have been an alcoholic in their house, but outside they're a picture-perfect family. So it's the same concept, just the mode of delivery is a lot different.
The medium's different.
I think we're brought up to be very self-deprecating people in regards to there's so many advertisements where it's like, you need this face wash to look better, you need to buy this cologne, or you need to wear these clothes, and if I'm not doing what the ads tell me, then there's something wrong with me. So for me to whip out my phone and take a selfie is I am rocking whatever I'm looking, and I'm feeling myself, and I think that's a hard feeling to come by these days, of just true self acceptance and not relying on other people to tell me that I look good, I guess.
Self-confidence issues has always been a problem for every generation. I don't care who you are, you've had a self-confidence issue. Now we have the means to kind of turn ourselves into something that we're not, and it's harder for people to figure it out because we're constantly creating content of ourselves, and kind of we start to believe that.
They represent a new workforce in the global market and have high aspirations. Half of them already have or plan to open their own businesses. Because of their digital, liquid, and collective mindset, they are affecting the way we produce and work in the future.
We have more of an opportunity to go from point A to point K, whereas the baby boomers had to go through every letter in the alphabet to reach that end goal. Through social media and promotion,
it's easier than ever.
It's easier than ever, but at the expense of other jobs being lost, like the midway jobs being lost.
Right.
Nobody wants to exercise. Nobody wants. Everything is push buttons. So you're not exercising your mind because everything is done for you.
They don't know any different. So they were born into it, and they're just reaping the benefits of advanced technology. And they won't appreciate where we've come from, and to get to to get to the stage that they have. I witness babies now, as early as babies with these tablets. They mount them on the strollers and stuff, and they're just fixated watching it. And then you could see that they're growing as they get older into 1 or 2 or 3. They're actually interacting with it. But that's an issue in itself because it's less social interaction. You talk about social media, but social media actually, it's kind of weird because it's social media, right? We think it's social, we're all getting together, but it's not. It's actually taking away from getting together. It's sort of like a paradox of sorts because it's social, yes, because you're all sharing things and you're being talking in a way, but yet the interaction is missing.
Maybe they're not as quick to use the technology, but I think they're very adaptable generation. Like, they've gone through so many technological advances that they've had to learn to use them, you know, and whereas it's just almost so normal. Like, I can't remember a time where I didn't have the internet. And he's been without the internet. Like, he actually went to libraries to get research. Like, I wouldn't even have to do that if I didn't have to.
Encyclopedias.
Yeah, like, what is that? Like, Wikipedia, I know, but what is an encyclopedia? I think there's a sense of, like, openness. Like, he's not, nor, like, the baby boomer generation's probably not used to having everything out there. Whereas, like, my generation, millennials, like, we're more comfortable with being open about our lives because, like, we get to pick and choose what we want others to see versus, like, he's very private about it.
But every once in a while, I think what's interesting is my sister and I and a couple of the cousins who have a shared life experience, we're all, like, give or take 5 years apart, will remember very fondly things that we did together as kids, outside together, playing hide and seek or doing, like, kid things, Simon Says, or Red Rover, or things like that. So very good memories of childhood and hanging out in high school with friends on, you know, in a place, like maybe getting soda or maybe just hanging out in somebody's house and doing a lot of hanging out. I think of those things very positively and very nostalgically, and I love that part of, those are the good parts of childhood, right? And I don't know that you guys have that same shared experience. If you do, it's going to be different from the one I had, right? But I'm hoping that you have that community sense that my generation did, that we belong to something bigger than ourselves. That makes you really, really feel that you're part of something much bigger than who you are alone.
I don't know if you've seen it. This week's Time magazine called you lazy, entitled narcissists who are part of the me generation. So self-obsessed, tweeting your Vines, hashtagging your Spotifys, and Snapchatting your YOLOs. Your generation needs everything to be about you, and that's very upsetting to us baby boomers because self-absorption is kind of our thing. We're the original me generation. We made the last 50 years all about us. We took all the money. We soaked up all the government services, and we've deep-fried nearly everything in the ocean. It may seem that all that's left for you is unpaid internships, Monday to Tuesday mail delivery, and thanks to global warming, soon semester at sea will mean sailing the coast of Ohio.
I don't think it's valid. I think self-absorbed on some levels maybe, but I think I see too many of you guys right here at St. John's doing really extraordinary things. So I wouldn't say selfie generation as being self-absorbed. Selfie taking selfies, yeah, but it doesn't mean it's who you are. It's just what you do. I'm sure that there are people that it's accurate for, but I don't think I'd make that generalization.
We do see it more in forms of social media and technology, and it kind of maybe gives us the impression that that's the case. I don't think it is as a whole. I don't think the generation has changed that fast or that much. But we shall see, because you really can't tell if it's all self-absorbed until you go like past it a little bit, and then you can kind of say, "Wow, you know, this is really out for themselves." And this, I mean,
That's true.
That question may have to be answered in another 10 to 15 years or whatnot.
The stereotypes are used, I think, to make these broad sweeping generalizations about people, and they don't hold. My only fear with stereotypes is that we really believe them and think that everybody in a generation thinks the exact same way. That's bull. Nobody does. Come on, how many individuals do you know? If you know 50, 60, 70, 120 individuals, every one of them are individuals and don't really fit any stereotype.
I don't find it in me to care because at the end of the day, I mean, everyone goes to the same place.
It's true and it's not true. We're the selfie generation. We're
the selfie generation. We're the lazy generation. We're gonna be 4,000 different generations before we die.
Yeah, we don't just take selfies. We do so many other things. So, I mean, you can say we're the selfie generation, but you can say you can replace that word selfie with 1,000 more adjectives.
We're
and
the
they will all
artistic
be
generation.
Correct. Yeah.
We are the
Bilingual,
movement generation.
Movement, bilingual.
We are the social
revolutionary.
generation. We are, I think to redefine us, we are the social generation.
I mean, we're so, especially in this global communities, the global communities we're creating online, we're starting to realize that we're so much more than we thought we were, you know?
Yeah.
So, I mean, yeah, we're the selfie generation, but we're a lot of other things too.
My generation was one of the most self-absorbed generations I ever met. Like, watch footage from Woodstock. That was not a self-absorbed generation? Come on.
I think the funniest thing about social media and baby boomers and millennials, they're like, oh, why do you need to know what goes on in everyone else's life? Meanwhile, their whole lives, they love to gossip. Like if you talk with a baby boomer, all they do is gossip.
And that's why the fastest growing demographic for Facebook is 50 to 65-year-old
Baby
women.
boomers.
Yeah.
Baby boomers. They love to talk about other people, but they will not admit it. That's the thing. They will not admit that they enjoy social media nearly as much as they do. If you go into the comment sections of any local-based news page on Facebook, it's all that demographic, and it is vile. Like, they are vile on Facebook.
We ruined the economy for you. You didn't do anything. You're just picking up the pieces. You're going to graduate from school in debt, probably with student loans. I don't know if you have any, but if you don't, God bless your parents for that. And if you do, you're like everybody else, right? So I didn't have any student loan. I didn't have debt when I graduated. You don't even get out the door, and you've got to get a job to pay off a loan that you didn't necessarily even want to have. There's something just basically wrong with all that, and it's much bigger than any one given generation. It'd be too simple to blame it on a generation, because my fear would be that your generation blaming it on my generation is just a cop-out for not wanting to do anything.
They look down on us as not like them, where they had to work right out of college, but they don't realize that now you can't make a living, you can't pay for college with a summer job. It's impossible, whereas they could. You can't put a down payment on a house. I feel like they don't want to become in tune because they don't understand it, and they don't want to try to understand it. They think that our brains as a generation are mush, meanwhile, our brains are the most challenged in history. We take test after test after standardized test. We're competing for college, we're competing for jobs. We're some of the most artistic and influential people have come out of our generation thus far. Mark Zuckerberg counts as a millennial. Lady Gaga is a millennial. All of these people are incredible visionaries and incredibly good at what they do. I think we are some of the most challenged minds over the course of history because we have the most being thrown at us, and we are expected to keep our cool all of the time. And that's a large part of why our generation has a lot of the issues it does.
Well, in some lines, it is empower people to have knowledge of what's going on around the world. At the same time, it's also saddening that you can't do nothing about it, even though you know it. So it's like a learned helplessness.
While we have a pro is we have access to everything. Everything is at our fingertips. Information, current events, technology, whatever we want, it's pretty much at our fingertips in terms of information. Con is we're so oversaturated in terms of information that it can almost be depressing because you can be getting information from all these different outlets and being like, I can't help all of them. Like I can't participate in all of them. I can't do this.
That, and I think sometimes because it is so overwhelming and there's so many outlets, we don't always choose the correct outlets.
Right.
Because all this information appeared at our disposal very recently. So we haven't had a lot of time to really stop and think about the best ways we could be using this
very
technology.
Quick. No. Instant gratification, instant gratification.
Right.
So that could be a pro and a con. We're very quick with how we work, but we're also a little bit on where we jump the gun. We have a habit of jumping the gun. And so you just reverse that for the baby boomer generation. They had access to no information and they felt like they were on top of the world.
Yeah.
But there's more opinions now. Like before, it's before social media. I would say a lot of things seem more black and white, but now with social media, with so many different opinions, there's a lot more gray area as to like who might be right, who might be wrong. It's harder for me as a millennial to form my own opinion, and I don't know if it's because I'm a Gemini and I'm easily swayed and I can see the sides of everything, but I find myself, I'll read a comment, like I'll read like a news story and I'll read a comment, be like, wow, that person makes a lot of sense. But then I'll read like the devil's advocate, like the opposing comment, like that also makes sense too. And then I'll never really have a definitive, sometimes I'll never really have like a definitive way of seeing something.
The other day I was looking at a picture of the Arctic and melting, and I'm looking at global warming. How do we even start now that it's gotten so bad? And did my generation muck that up? Yeah, oh yeah, let's just burn more oil and muck up the atmosphere completely. And your generation didn't do enough to stop us. So do it now. You know, stop listening to me. Start talking. You do it. And I mean, I think we need to support you in every way that we can. But it's no one person and no one generation. I think if we all don't start working together, that'll be the last generation.
You may learn sooner than most generations the hard lesson that you must always make the path for yourself. There is no secret society out there that will tap you on the shoulder one night and show you the way. Because the true secret is your life will not be defined by the society that we have left you. To paraphrase Robert Bout, society has no more idea of what you are than you do, because ultimately it has only your brains to think with. Every generation must define itself, and so make the world that suits itself. So, if you must find your own path, and we have left you no easy path, then decide now to choose the hard path that leads to the life and the world that you want. And don't worry if we don't approve of your choices. In our benign self-absorption, I believe we have given you a gift, a particular form of independence, because you do not owe the previous generation anything. Thanks to us, you owe it to the Chinese.
When you get older, and if you ever have children, you gotta think how you were when you were young, and how that generation is gonna be different. And you're gonna have to adjust. And if you don't change, you're gonna lose things.
I would not want to be in your shoes for all the money in the world. I love being 20, but I could not do some of the things that you guys do today. There are a lot of things that you're able to do, and there are a lot of things ahead of you that are really amazing. You've got a lot of work ahead of you. You know, there's a lot, my generation and the generation after me, Gen X, did a lot of mucking up, and you've got a lot of cleanup work. I think you can do it all. I think you can be anything you want to be. I think you can take this world and just make it whatever you want it to be.
This is the first time in history that we've had these kind of technological applications from cradle to grave. Mm-hmm. So we're no longer changing with technology. Like the baby boomers had to grow into technology as it became available. Yes. We have had it from the onset, and now we're growing with it. The American dream has really changed.
Absolutely. Because
anyone can be anything at this point. It's just a matter of how you market yourself via social media.
You guys, wow. I mean, if you can get over the crap that we dealt you, I mean, if you can find your way and you can band together in a way that, because of social media, no other generation has been able to bridge those gaps, it's an amazing thing. You're pretty awesome, personally and collectively.
We're a generation of doers, and people are going to tell us we can't, and it's our job to prove them wrong.